show, and today I have my good bud that I've been waiting to talk to for a long time. Kurt, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, and as we speak, I am tweeting out the link to this so that people who are already watching won't care, but that's what I'm doing. Okay, here I am.
Perfect. Kurt is a very busy and accomplished guy. He's a retired colonel. He is a senior columnist with Townhall. He is the author of the Kelly Turnbull series and a practicing trial lawyer. How do you find time to do all these things, Kurt?
I learned to manage time in the Army. In fact, I'm going to be taking my associates Tuesday and formally doing about a half-hour training session on time management. I like to tell people I can give you any resource you need. I can give you money. I can give you bodies. I can give you logistics. I cannot give you more time.
Right.
So, and you just need to fill up all your time with something.
Yeah,
And
time
that's just kind of
management.
how I do it.
Once you get aligned, once your life is full and busy and you're working towards something you believe in, the number one obstacle in life, time management, at least for me.
Yeah, and I never feel busy. You know, people are like, you do 3 columns a week. I know. I tweet a little bit
Sometimes.
once in a while, and I write the books and I do the law and I do the family stuff. But I don't feel busy because I get things done.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're passionate
God, we
about what
can
you
have
do.
we can have like a boring conversation about my time management theories.
Well, I do have something all mapped out here. I've got a journey for us.
Oh, that's not good. We're not doing that.
And hey, man,
We're gonna find a tangent.
it's rough. It's rough, but I like to be prepared and I like to have at least somewhat of an arc to take us on here. And one of the things I did want to start off with, and you did mention it,
Like
was
Joseph Campbell journey, the hero's journey.
yeah, man.
We have
we're
to
gonna
have the
take a
call to
journey.
adventure. We have to have the challenge, and then we have to have the climax.
Oh, so
Well,
you know about storytelling.
I just a little bit.
That's
Gotta
awesome.
save the cat.
I want to get to that too eventually, but I want to start off with your military service because from there we're going to be able to go into a number of different subjects. And so for some of the people that may not know you, could you give us a little bit of a summary on your military service? What branch were you in? What did you do? Where did you serve? Because where you served is a key tie-in to sort of future conversation here.
Okay. Well, I was at UC San Diego, which is now a top 10 school, according to all the smart people who will tell you they're smart. But I managed, in my first legal scam, managed to weasel my way in with a C average and several Fs from high school because I opted out. Anyway, I was bored and I was a senior and I didn't want to go to law school and I didn't want to go be the second assistant guy to running the Xerox machine. And I thought, well, if I join the Army, I can follow the family tradition. I can serve my country a little bit. I can go live in Europe or somewhere, and I'll do that. So I enlisted as a private, went through basic training, went through officer candidate school, which is the hardest 14 weeks of my life, much harder than any war. Somehow, about 33 years ago this week, got commissioned as a lieutenant. Went off to what's called chemical nuclear biological school. I didn't get infantry, which is what I wanted. I got branched, toxic waste. So after that, I went to airborne school and I went to Europe, and I was a chemical officer, and I became a decontamination platoon leader, and essentially a heavily armed car wash. So I was there a couple years enjoying Europe, and then Saddam Hussein decided he was going to go into Kuwait. And I got sent down there where I went back to being a platoon leader. So I ran a heavily armed car wash in the war. It's like people are like, "Yo, it's so but your military serious, like you're some hero." Dude, I ran a car wash. You would literally have to FedEx the bullets to me to hit me. I was so far in the rear that rear echelon MFers would laugh at me. I mean, look, I'm no Pete Buttigieg. I'm no Dick Blumenthal. Anyway, I got off active duty, after the war left. Brought all my guys home, fine, which was the important thing, and we did our mission. But the only action I saw was either on CNN or when I walked in on a couple of my soldiers screwing in a Connex.
Don't ask, don't tell.
You just shut the door. I'm not good to judge. I let me get this adjusted.
There you go.
I then got out, went to law school, decided I missed the Army for some reason, joined the California Army National Guard, ended up for 3 weeks in the LA riots. And I transferred over to infantry, and I just kept doing that. I kept commanding units. I would go fix problems for the commander. 9/11 happened. I ended up getting deployed to Kosovo for 16 months. A 16-month total deployment. About a year was in Kosovo. And that was in 04 to 06. And then I went to Army War College, commanded a cavalry squadron, which is a battalion, and had a second battalion attached to me. I commanded most of the forces in northern San Diego during the San Diego fire crisis, and eventually got promoted to 06 and just hated it. I went to National Training Center, second in command of a brigade, and it was the whole thing was just miserable. I just hated being a colonel. I love being a lieutenant colonel, hated being a full colonel. You walk into a room, everyone starts freaking out because the colonel's there. As a light colonel, I could shimmy in under a truck while a guy's changing oil on a deuce or a 5-ton and just say, hey, what are you doing? Show me what you're doing. Because my idea of leadership, the way I was trained, you lead by walking around. You go, you talk to people where they are, what they're doing. You see what they're doing. I remember my guys, I walked through the mess hall a couple times, and they were like stunned to see me. And I was like, why are you guys surprised to see me? Well, sir, no commanders ever come down here. And I was like, well, why not? You're part of my unit. Where else would I be? Those guys actually like me a lot. It's interesting being a commander because you're like a normal guy. You go home, your kid vomits on you, your dog, barks at you, whatever. And then you go there and you're like, and it can go to your head. And you sometimes don't understand how much authority you have. I remember one time the cooks gave me some eggs, and we had the best food section around. And that's really important. And they were very proud of it. And I said, gosh, I wish I had brought my Heinz ketchup. And I didn't think anything of it. Jack, I never wanted for Heinz ketchup again. I would walk there, I could see a sergeant go, you got the commander's ketchup. I didn't ask for it. It just happened. They actually gave me a cold spray painted bottle of ketchup when I left the unit. That's awesome. Which was, I thought that was very meaningful for me. Right up there with my saber.
So you were a beloved leader, which is incredible, and getting out.
Well, they didn't frag me.
Well, that's a.
No, that's the low bar that I'm glad I didn't limbo under.
I think there's a great lesson here for people, though. A lot of times people get into positions of leadership and they decide at that point it's time to stay in their office, or they're too good for things, or they just delegate.
No, I was never in my office.
But it's the other way around. When you become a leader,
yes.
your job actually you become a servant. You're a servant to the people on your team. Were you guys trained in the military around servant leadership? Because I get that a lot from military folks.
The best guys thought of it that way. Yeah. And I still kind of do it today. I will take the newest associate and say, you're going to be afraid to come in because sometimes I can sit in my office, because sometimes I have the door shut. And if I'm not on the phone, maybe I'm just working. And you're going to be, I don't want to bother him. You're not bothering him. My job is to provide you guidance and make decisions and take responsibility for them. It's to answer your questions and get you the support you need. That is my job. So I'm not doing you a favor when I talk to you. I'm doing my job, and you have a right to that. That is what I am to give you, because there are things you need. You can't send something out of the office unless a partner's looked at it and approved it. So that's our obligation to you, so you can do your job. And they kind of look at me like I'm crazy, but that's the way it is in the military, at least the good military, the old military, before it became a suppurating cauldron of feces and CRT.
Well, we're definitely going to get to that, but I just want to ask a couple more questions on leadership and leadership style. Have you tried out other leadership styles or methods? Do you have a clearly defined leadership style that is yours, and you assess and modify and adjust, or how do you manage that in your life?
Look, I think I've used other ones when I've been ticked off, and one of the things is I try never to get mad. at any of my own people. I'll freely get mad. I mean, you'll hear a stream of obscenities issuing from my office about some other attorney or something. The times I got mad as a colonel, because you've got such weight, you don't realize the power. You know, it's like getting in a boxing match with a 5-year-old, because you're a colonel.
Yeah.
And when you hit, it hurts.
Yeah.
So I was first of all, I was surrounded by great non-commissioned officers, other great officers, and we had a real culture that didn't approve of bullying or power-hungry stuff. I mean, your own peers would take you down if you were that kind of guy.
Right.
So anytime I got mad, quote unquote, it was often performance.
Right.
If anybody saw it, it was a performance. It was, I'm here to make a point. And then it ends and you forget about it. And the thing is, it can't be about you. I remember I got assigned one guy. There were only 3 guys in the whole guard that I disliked actively. And when I got my command, one of them was going to be my executive officer. You don't get to pick your team. Although, if you're smart, you know how to build your team. And I got this guy, and Jack, I didn't like him at all. And I thought to myself, well, I can't not like him anymore. I don't have that option. He's one of my guys. And I went in and I treated him fair. And he was, it was his career. I mean, now his boss hates him. And I tried my best to give him a fresh start. And he ended up being a very good friend and a very good officer. So, doing the right thing is not just morally right. I think in a utilitarian perspective, it really works. And also, I was pretty confident if I ever got shot, my guys would pull me in instead of pointing and laughing. So you kind of had that too.
That's good. I mean, you have to engender loyalty. I mean, it's clear, it's in the roles, it's in the hierarchy, but when it comes really down to it, you have to earn it and you have to sustain it. And that comes through giving first.
Yes.
Leading with giving.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, it sounds like something you'd read in a self-help book. But as a practical matter, you got to be there for your guys. They'll be there for you. Nobody wants to be in a shitty unit.
Right.
Okay. Nobody wants to be in a bad unit. And I was the guy who would be sent to quote unquote bad units to fix them up. And I always did. And it's not because I'm like some superstar army guy. It's because I followed 5,000 years of military learning and lore, and I got out there and led, and I shamelessly stole bits and pieces of leadership style from other folks, mostly colonels and some generals, and of course Captain Kirk in the original Star Trek. I would, always, pretend your ship is dead so you can sucker them in. Never show fear, and always score with the green alien chick. Yes. So he had lots of life hacks from Shatner.
You point out something, and we come to a topic that I do want to dig into. You say you borrowed your leadership style by reading 5,000 years of military leadership and history and strategy. It's all there. Right? Like people figured all this.
There's no surprises.
People figured this stuff out long time ago. And in fact, we figured out things like masculinity is a good thing. Masculine energy is a good thing. Build, create, protect, provide, instruct, master. These are masculine traits. They are all, I thought, part of the military culture and ethos. But Kurt, things are changing. What is changing? Why is it changing? What is going to happen to our readiness, to our ability to protect, to provide, to instruct, to perform, to master? What's going on inside the military when it comes to masculine energy, woke stuff, the mission?
Well, we have been blessed, Jack. We have been blessed by having being led by such geniuses that 5,000 years of military history, and now they're finally going to get it right. Okay. The same guys who haven't been able to win a war in 20 years against a bunch of Toyota truck driving banditos are about to rebuild our military in a brand new image, and it's going to be better than ever. Move over, Hannibal. Scipio, sit your ass down. We got General Austin and his 60-day stand down for equity.
Wait. What's
It's
this?
all
What's a
ridiculous.
60-day stand down for equity? What's that?
Oh, he has some sort of 60-day period where we're all going to look at diversity and inclusion and all that other bullshit. And it is bullshit. The military, first of all, I mean, I feel like a sap when I use facts and evidence, like the fact that
Same.
the military, right? Because nobody cares. Because
Right.
I'm never going to convince them.
Nope.
The only person I'm going to convince is someone who doesn't know anything about it.
Yep.
But the simple fact is, the military was and is the most diverse organization and the least biased and prejudiced organization in American life. And some people always want to go, well, we still have problems. No, we don't have problems. There are not problems in any significant amount. And I think we should dwell on success rather than some hypothetical intermittent failure by some dipshit.
Yeah.
But the reason for this is the military was what we thought was the last bastion of the institutions holding out against this social justice horseshit. And as we've seen, it hasn't. Now, guys like me, I kind of saw it coming a while ago. The thing is, there's an old saying: soldiers do what commanders check. Right? When my boss told me, Kurt, we gotta get our maintenance numbers up, I told all my commanders, and they told their guy, gentlemen, we're going to focus on maintenance, and I'm going to be in your motor pool. I'm going to be checking maintenance. So, the implied task is you be in the motor pool checking maintenance, and your guys be doing maintenance. And everybody got it, and we did maintenance, and maintenance improved. If you say, I'm checking wokeness as a commander, you're going to get wokeness. Now, a lot of guys won't like it. A lot of guys will bitch about it, but you will generally get that. You get what the commander prioritizes. That's a two-edged sword. It means that the military as an institution can change remarkably fast. People are like stunned that the military has changed so much, and they didn't see it coming. The nice thing is it can change back. I mean, let's assume President DeSantis comes in. Let's assume Vice President Rick Grinnell comes in and is given the mission of clearing out the bureaucracy. And Grinnell gives me a call because I live in the same town as he does. And he says, Kurt, I need you to come to Washington. And I get the job of going over to the Pentagon, sitting in an office and saying, okay, General, what would you say you do here? And we start firing
office
these
space
guys.
on them.
Bingo. I'm taking your red stapler and your M1, and you're relieved and directed to retire. And you start doing that. I'm a big believer in leadership by anecdote as well, especially on the political side, because especially now, if you look at Twitter, you have these little mini controversies. A guy in a high school is thrown out because he refused to kneel on his basketball team, or Space Force colonel is relieved of his command because he points out that Marxism is Marxist. I would strongly suggest that the DeSantis administration have its political office scanning the interwebs for those incidents, because those anecdotes allow you to teach. And then and then if the president wants to change it, he needs to give time. Time is his most precious resource. Give 30 minutes a day, and then you see that thing, Colonel relieved for talking bad about CRT. Call over the Defense Department. Hey, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I want you. I want his entire chain of command. I want you in my office to brief me tomorrow at 9:30 about how you intend to meet my intent of protecting the free speech rights of our service members, and how you intend to remedy this unfair, improper, and unconstitutional attack on this soldier's ability to think. I'll see you there. Bring your deputy, because if your briefing is unsatisfactory, your deputy, who will assume your position after I relieve and retire you, will brief me the next day on how it gets done. You would need to do that perhaps twice and they will get the message. That's the nice thing about the military. Other bureaucracies would be slower. Military would respond very, very quickly. And I think you'd find a lot of people would be very sympathetic to it. Remember, this is mostly the senior officers. It's the guys who went to war college like me, where it's really designed not to win wars. I mean, it's not a serious war. War college is no longer a serious entity. A significant number of the colonels there will tell you, because they think what you want to hear is America's greatest strategic threat is the weather in 100 years. You know, climate change. What about China? No. It's the weather. It's to civilize them so that they can go and talk to people in Washington, D.C. without scaring them and making them wet their skorts.
How do you think these ideas got into the military leadership to the point where they're firing a guy for writing a book about Marxists being Marxists and it being in the military, when for the last 4 years, theoretically, we had Trump? And like the years before that, the woke stuff hadn't fully exploded.
It was coming. They made an effort to hire woke generals. Remember, you know, generals are socialists. Generals operate. You know, it's fun to be a dictator if that gets you off. They're in a situation where you're told where to live, what to wear, where to go, how to be. They think nothing of banning alcohol because you might make bad choices. You know, that's why they're all for gun control. Well, of course it's gun control. You shouldn't have a gun. I don't think you need one. We need to lock them up because, you know, in the Army, guns are locked up. Why would you have one? Us National Guard guys, I spent my last 23 years Guard, except for when I was on active duty, you could see the contrast because most of us had started our own businesses. These guys had no concept of the outside world. Everything was set for them. And that's what you do need that in the military. Okay, 5,000 years tells you can't really have an entrepreneurial army. That just doesn't quite work. The whole idea of mercenary armies crisscrossing Europe fighting for whoever's got the most gold doesn't seem to work these days, though sometimes I think we ought to give it a shot. Ask me about privateers to take out Al-Qaeda. It sounds like fun. But no, they're socialist.
That's actually pretty 4G of us to do something like that instead of trying to drop all of our ordnance on one city and kill everybody just to get the one guy. Hiring locals to do hits. That's actually the way that we should be doing it, right?
I think I think there are a lot of options out there that we haven't fully explored, and you know, the term mercenary is thrown around so much lately, but there's you know, there's some value to it. Although, you know, we have the Roman history example where you professionalize a military instead of making a citizen military, and pretty soon you have Caesar. Now, Caesar's not so bad if you're Caesar or one of Caesar's pals. But if you're not, ooh, that's not going to work out so good. Yeah. Of course, liberals don't look at history. But I got to put a lot of blame on Trump because he had 4 years to unscrew this.
He did.
He was impressed by generals. And generals are impressive in that on the battlefield, most of them are legit brave. And he had a guy like Kelly, General Kelly, his son was killed in action. I mean, they're not sissies in the normal liberal sense. They have a lot of personal bravery, but they get Kristen Gillibrand yelling at them in a Senate conference about how they, their toxic masculinity, and suddenly these guys are quaking in their combat boots. I don't get it. You start pushing. So you got Trump doesn't know, and remember, Trump got screwed by every general he hired.
That's right.
At some level. Yep. Okay, even Flynn caused him problems involuntarily, but he did cause him problems. Yeah. And Trump was continually impressed by it because they're generals, right? And that was a mistake. You've got to treat these guys with like a whip and a chair, right? Like Siegfried and Roy and their tigers. And remember, the tiger ripped. I don't know if it's Siegfried or Roy, but ripped one of their throats out.
One of them. I read this in your most recent column at Townhall, and you guys should check it out. Kurt's got is it 3 times a week up at Townhall?
Yep.
3 times a week at
Wednesday,
Townhall.
Thursday.
Check it out. I read one of your most recent ones, and you were talking about this phenomenon about Trump being impressed by the generals. It is interesting and ironic that We, the people who elected a bomb to drop in DC to destroy the captured institutions that we acknowledge were captured. He himself, the bomb, did not understand that the institutions had been captured. There is
That's
some
true.
deep irony in that.
Yeah, he wasn't fully woke. He was kind of outside the institutions, but also a part of them. He was, he was a fixture. He still respected Maggie Haberman in the New York Times. He'd call it the failing New York Times, but if he wanted to be in a paper, he wanted it to be the New York Times, because he still had that vibe that that the institutions mattered. That's why we need guys who understand, who are woke, and who actively want to destroy and defeat enemy institutions, because they're all aligned against us.
All of them. All of them. They're all aligned, all of them. They've all been captured, and the only approach is to either destroy them or completely ignore them and create your own new networks and your own new systems. On an individual level,
Or
much
both.
easier to build your own networks and to build and to function that way. With the government, I'm not exactly, I don't know what the answer is there besides, I mean, the name Sulla
Patience.
keeps coming to mind.
Nice.
But please, nobody research that reference. I'm not advocating for anything. But there's a clearing of house.
You're not making a proscription.
No, definitely not. But clearing house is something.
Remember, Sulla ended up melting with worms and stuff as he died. But anyway, although he did give up power, which I think was interesting.
He did. Not until after he just axed, like 3,000 people or something like that.
No better friend, no worse enemy. Look, and like you, I spend a lot of time reading Roman history because I find it instructive and interesting. I'm reading about Hannibal right now, The Ghosts of Cannae, and that battle and its aftermath. And the stuff is fascinating. And like we've been talking about, the lessons are still, the lessons of history are there. And I think it's ironic that I can go on my phone and within 5 seconds have a book by one of the greatest scholars ever at my fingertips. And, I often listen to them when I'm driving or exercising or whatever. Time management. Right. And nobody, and very few people do. I mean, we have the most historically illiterate society I think America's ever had. I mean, you go back 100 years, they'd be talking about Pericles and the Peloponnesian War and what did Alexander the Great do? And you start talking about that stuff to people, and they're like, well, I was informed that history began in 1619, then skipped forward to Obama got inaugurated, and then took a break between 16 and 20.
Well, this is a phenomenon that is a big deal, which is the disconnection from the ancients, a disconnection from history, a belief that everything old is bad and everything new is good. This is a big problem. I mean, our students today barely understand what's on the map, much less understand the parallels between America and Rome and why it's valuable to study Roman history and see what's happening there. There's not any chance in the near future of that being restored. And I also just had a thought too, which is that as the sum total of available human knowledge continues to grow exponentially, the likelihood that you're able to acquire a commanding grasp of it diminishes every single day. I wonder if we're actually leading to a point where like the amount of information is just going to make it so that we don't absorb any information at all.
Well, I don't think it's going to work out that way. And, I was fascinated because at one point in human history, and maybe not too long ago, maybe 2,000-3,000 years ago, one person could know everything that humans knew that was important. He could do agriculture. He could hunt. He could do maybe read and write. He could do basic medical stuff. One person could possess all human knowledge. That of course is impossible now. The skill is having a general outline of knowledge and then being able to find the answers, which is the secret of law. Right. Do you think I don't have one of my code books here, but it's like this thick.
Right.
You think I memorized the entire California, and that's just California code. I mean, every time before I go in trial, I go and read the evidence code. It's about 20, 30 pages, just to remind myself I've been doing this 27 years. So
it's about building a system of being able to acquire
yes.
the information to identify, go out and get it.
Yes. Exactly, and I think it's kind of a medical doctor model where you have an MD and he's got a basic medical knowledge, and then you specialize in something. For instance, I know a lot about Romans, and I know a lot about the military. I don't know so much about I don't know, sports, right? But if I wanted to, I could go find I could go find the information. You know, how many no hitters have there been in the history of Major League Baseball? I barely know that's a concept, but in about 10 minutes, I know how I could find out.
Right. Being able to acquire the information that you need in a speedy fashion, that's important. That's a skill. Curating information is a skill.
Yes.
Information will become almost valueless because there's like zero value because there's so much of it. Being able to find it, being able to curate, being able to understand what's important. This is the future. That is why you follow people on Twitter in many respects, people, is because that Twitter account is proven to curate information in a way that you find valuable, which is part of my Twitter philosophy as well. Kurt, you know, I see you putting out a lot of information there, and also in your columns, which are both hilarious and informative all at the same time. Again, guys.
Well, that's how I add value.
Yes.
You know, any bow-tied virgin geek can write conservative dreck. I was a stand-up comic for a while. I know how to write a joke. Yeah, and when you combine, see, it's funny. I'm like, I can go on Twitter and talk about somebody's mom, and then I turn around and I'm like, okay, I got a couple, you know, I got your credentials, liberals, I got your advanced degrees, I got your positions, you know, I got your resume. Not that I'm impressed by it. I'm impressed by other things about believe me, I have no inferiority complex. But it's just, I think that's one of the things that's allowed my success. Is that I do bring value in the form of entertainment value to something that is, you know, I'm a lot of times I'm talking about really sad and scary stuff that are happening to our country.
Definitely.
And if you can, and I really like it when people say, hey, I look forward to your columns. They give me hope and a laugh. Yep. And it's like, that has value. Morale is huge. People don't get that, Jack. Yeah. They think and sometimes conservatives, particularly the Ahoy cruise ship types, will go, well, guys like Schlichter are just preaching to the choir. Well, first of all, you know what kind of shit goes on in the choir? They're all banging each other and shit. It's a goddamn paid place. They're drinking and doing pills and stuff. Look, the choir needs preached to. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You know what he did with the oboe? You don't want to. It is important to raise the morale of your people. Frankly, conservatives are always about or at least the traditional, the managed decline set is all about telling them how, you know, hey, we just got to suck it up. You know, the David Frenches who are like, you know, well, our conservative principles require that we submit to serfdom. No.
Yeah.
What the fuck? No.
You bring up a really great point. First of all, humor and mockery, 100% essential, especially in the position that we're in as being sort of insurgents against an occupying force here. And morale. You know, I do a lot of appearances on Tim Pool's show every other Wednesday. And
love Tim.
I love Tim too, but you know, sometimes we get feedback that we're a little too black-pilled. And I can feel that sometimes, right? Like there is if you lean into it, you can really find it. Do you talking about morale? It's great to keep morale up. Do you have something that will help us keep morale up at this time?
Well, look,
are you on a black pill tip, white pill tip? Like, how do you feel?
I'm optimistic. I can't. That's just my nature. I'm. It's my training. I'm looking for the answer, the course of action that's going to lead to securing the objective. And yeah, it's hard. It's going to be hard. Nothing. You know, look, freedom is not the game for the faint of heart. Okay, if you want to be, you know, if you want to sit, you know, you want to be a subject, you want to sit in your council flat watching Eurovision, being anesthetized by the opiate of the jackasses. Well, then that's how you'll live. If you want to be a free citizen, you're going to lock and load, and you're going to get out there, and you better think that you have a chance of winning. Jack, I can't tell you, the only thing that ticks me off, it doesn't tick me off, it just annoys me, is when people start black-pilling me way too much. There's a difference between accurately assessing the situation, which at some level is grim. At other levels, I think I see a lot of sunlight. I don't know how to utilize somebody going, yeah, we're screwed. We'll never win another election. Okay, well, go swallow your 45. I mean, I don't understand what do you expect me to do? Go, yeah, I guess this whole freedom thing was out. Well, I'm a serf.
Right.
I don't get that. And it also manifestly is not so. There are tons of options, and we've seen it. We have legislatures pushing through, despite huge pushback, electoral reform. We have courts that, while they are not perfect, and look, I always tell everybody the first thing any lawyer does when he's assigned a case is figure out who appointed the judge. So it is. Look, the judicial system is not perfect, but it's not broken. Just yesterday, in the Sixth Circuit, they tossed out 2-1 a Biden era plan, Biden administration plan to give priority in certain relief funds by race and by gender.
That's huge.
Now it's dispiriting that there was a dissenter who was an Obama appointee. But we won that fight. We win fights.
Yeah.
It's not all defeat, and I don't know how to use defeat. I'm not faking my morale. I think what we have is stronger. I think we're tougher. I think history is on our side.
Yes.
The challenge that I see, is that of the three outcomes, and there are three outcomes. There is, we can all live together in a civil society where everybody respects each other's civil rights and is allowed to participate in society. Option one. Option two, I'm in charge, and we're going to do it my way. Option three, you're in charge and you're going to do it your way. Now, I prefer option one. I can live with option two. Option three is a non-starter.
Non-starter. Indeed.
And the Caesarism issue, a problem, is option two. Because, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't think Trump was our last chance as traditional kind of conservative populists. I think he was their last chance. And I think the next guy is going to be, they'll call him authoritarian, I'll call him Aspergery. It's going to be a guy like DeSantis who literally doesn't care about them and will just go and do it, but they won't have the whole, but he doesn't do the mean tweets thing. So they can't make the issue about his personality. They've got to fight on the terrain of accomplishments, which they do not want to fight on because people are going to listen to the debates sitting in gas lines.
It's really funny you brought up the terrain. It was thought that Trump was setting the terrain. He was prepping the battlefield. He was destroying the enemy, the fake news campaign, picking and choosing where he wanted to fight on terrain that he wanted to fight. Actually, it was the total fucking opposite. He got pushed into fighting in the terrain that they wanted, fighting all the fights that they wanted, and he got hammered.
Well, look, I think he did. Look, I think he was tremendously necessary. I think he had unbelievable accomplishments for the opposition and the way he came in. He comes in without a Rolodex, Jack. If you had that giant puffball Jeb ! He would have had 5,000 guys who the Bush family held chits over, who had served in some other administration, knew exactly, how to go in and be deputy undersecretary for sorghum affairs at the, agriculture department. And they would have been able to man it and begin kind of moving in their direction. Of course, that direction would have been towards, managed decline.
Right.
Trump had none. So he didn't have, and he didn't know how to run the federal government. So he comes in with nothing, has to use a bunch of people whose loyalties to the establishment, not to him. And personnel was his biggest problem. I can't hold that against him because that's who he was, and we picked him knowing that.
Yeah, it's just ironic. Ironically, we thought that the PR side of him, the Twitter side, the social media side, might have been an advantage when in fact it was basically part of the source of all the disadvantages that he had. But let me give you one little anecdote on this change of administration stuff. I live in DC, right? And I see change of administration. I feel it in my city. I see the swarms of people come. I see the flavors of restaurants change, right? When Bush came into office, steakhouses, they became very, very popular. Obama comes into office and it's like, I love fusion food, but it's like fusion food all over the place and just a totally different vibe. Trump comes into office, no change in the city. No change. There wasn't
Yeah.
swarms of people, thousands of NGO workers, and none of that. It just didn't happen. So it was palpable, even in the city.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is a meaningful observation.
Yeah.
Look, I think I think if Trump runs again, which I don't think he'll do,
Please don't.
I think he will. I think he was the right man for the right time. Will he be the right man for 2024? Right now, I'm tending to think he isn't. I'm flexible. I know enough not to count him out. Hopefully, he'll have learned lessons from this. I think his last year in office, he learned a lot of lessons. I mean, he had great people at the end. Robert O'Brien, his personal friend of mine, was a unbelievably effective national security advisor, maybe the best one we've ever had. And how do you know? Because you don't know who Robert O'Brien was. You just know we had peace in the Middle East. They solved the Kosovo fight, which was Rick Grinnell was involved in that too. I mean, they just accomplished stuff at the end, and it was effective and systematic. Imagine Trump with an effective administration. Now, the problem with Trump is life is not a cafeteria. You cannot have a Trump who doesn't mean tweet, because then he wouldn't be Trump. Yeah. Trump's mean tweet stuff, yes, was distracting, but it was also invigorating because he taught conservatives you can fight back. Yes. You don't have to submit. And he got a lot of people woke. So I mean, obviously a mixed bag. I don't think a fair historian would call him a failed president. I think he was a tremendously important one, and important to set up the future. I think Joe Biden, in contrast, is going to make Jimmy Carter happy, because now Jimmy Carter is not the worst president in the last century. This is a caretaker president. And he's, this zombie's staggering through the shopping mall that is America, waiting for, the sands in the hourglass to run out, because he's clearly senile. Yeah. He's clearly not well. This is the calm before the storm, because the real fight's going to be the progressives when Kamala Harris takes over, yeah, and whoever we put up. And then that's going to be the real fight. But right now, he's screwing up so badly. And I look at these polls going 62% approval rate, yeah, and it's like, let me look at the crosstabs. Oh, 40% Democrats, 7% Republicans. Right. They can attempt to prop him up with all the, hey, what ice cream flavor are you having, Mr. President? Right. They want. When you walk in and you can't buy a ribeye for under $20 a pound, people are going to notice.
Some of the blackpilling that we get from folks is that we'll never win elections ever again, especially at the local and state levels. And then I look at what's happening in Florida. Florida is reddening, right? Florida is reddening in a way. Is that even a word? Is reddening in a way that no one anticipated, right? I don't remember. Well, nobody ever.
The thing is, nobody. It's funny that people act surprised when you have conservative policy. And when I say conservative, I mean new conservative. It has a strain of populism. It has a strain of libertarianism. It's not the old conservatism of the guy who drives a Buick and was the big man at the Rotary Club. This is a new conservative where we're looking out for the interests of regular people.
Yes.
More actively. Yes. I mean, my God, the betrayal of our own voters. Yes. You have a guy, and I wrote about it, I think, in Militant Normals. You have a guy, he goes over, he fights in Fallujah, he comes home, he's still got a limp because he's got shell fragments in him, gets a job, gets married, he's working at a air conditioning plant, and all of a sudden a limo pulls up, guy who looks like Mitt Romney gets out and goes, hey, sorry guys, I'm sending these jobs to Oaxaca because my accountants tell me I can make 0.2% more. Enjoy learning to code. And we as Republicans allowed that to happen. We were that's okay, because Milton Friedman said, well, right. Milton Friedman didn't have to win elections. We got to support our voters. And we got to support the people instead of, the giant corporation. I think it's hysterical that a guy who actually took a date to see William F. Buckley once is talking about, big bad corporations, but the fact is corporations are another institution that's allying itself against us and our interests. And there is a huge open space for a Republican Party that talks about the interests of normal people, and that includes the interest in tradition, which appeals to every color of American. I mean, I think, I married into a Latin family, a Cuban family, and, not real open to the whole trans vibe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what these people are about.
Yeah.
And, I don't understand why we need to cater to the cultural preferences of the blonde 30-year-old second wife of some CEO of a bank in New York.
Yes.
Because how about normal people?
It's been pointed out to me by folks much smarter than I, much better read than I, that we are basically a society tethered to the whims of, young and middle-aged women, especially single women, especially liberal women. It's amazing and astounding how we're being led around by the nose in that regard.
There's 60% of college graduates now. Right. So all these elite jobs are going to be run by college-educated, or that is indoctrinated, women.
Yeah.
And, the nice thing is they are not indicative of women. That's just who they are. It's not because they're women. That's just who that group is.
Right.
There's another group of traditional women who are not at all sympathetic to this insanity.
Right.
You look at my wife, she's got, post-college degree, was a teacher for a while, but chose to be a stay-at-home mom. And she doesn't go for that shit. Right. She actually told me I need to go own more guns.
Yeah.
I think there is a huge appetite among young people. That's why I'm optimistic, is what they've been fed is not making them happy. The idea that you should wait until you're 40 and then maybe get married and, maybe have kids, that's not making them happy in general. Now, of course, there's individuals. I'm a military guy. I talk in general. I don't talk in individuals. But in general, as a culture, we have embraced an idea of kind of a hedonistic idea that, you put off actual real life way too far. And I know I was married at 38. I had my first kid at 40. I'm a great believer in the, step on the butterfly in the time machine thing, and the butterfly effect thing. Yeah. So I don't want to say, well, gosh, I wish I got married earlier. I'm glad it turned out the way it did for me.
Right.
But as a culture, I think that we should be pushing people to get married in their early mid-20s.
Yeah.
And we should make that more possible with policy, but we should also make that more acceptable with culture, where it's, this also goes back to the college thing. A lot of people are getting 4-year degrees or graduate degrees that they really don't need. Yeah, college has become high school too. The indrunkening.
It's a really interesting thing that I'm really dealing with right now. I've got 2 kids in high school. Both of whom could go to any college in America that they want to, and we're debating whether or not they should, the pros and cons, what kind of degree to get. If you're going to go, should you just start a business, start a hustle? And we figured out my daughter, I think she wants to go into science, some sort of medical field. So that path, pretty clear. My son, he wants to hustle and build businesses. Don't need to go to college so much for that.
Mine are both in high school, and I don't want to invade their privacy too much, but they're looking at options beyond the traditional off you go to 4-year, which I did. I didn't realize there was anything else back in 1983, and I wasn't happy about it. I didn't want to go to school, but I kind of had to, and I ended up getting literally nothing out of the education there. I learned to write because I was on the papers, and I met friends that I'm still with. In fact, one who introduced me to my wife, and I got to work in Washington. So they understand that college is an entire experience, and you can get value in different ways besides just sitting hungover in a big auditorium listening to some guy with a man bun talk to you about imperialism.
Well, I think you just summed it up pretty well there.
Yeah, I think that we have to be open as a society, and first of all, we need to stop being so damn impressed with them ourselves. And I got a dose of, look, I have 3 degrees. I have the liberal credentials. And not too long ago, my water heater went out. Spilled water everywhere, had to freaking tear up the floor and everything. But a gentleman came over to replace the water heater. And, for all my fancy book learning, I'm sitting there watching him going, this is a man who can do something I can't do. I don't have the skill to do this. I don't have the knowledge to do this. Why doesn't he deserve respect? People go, you're a lawyer, you deserve respect. Well, let's not debate that. But why isn't somebody who can do something I can't do respected? How about a guy who can work on modern cars? I mean, my old 73 Mustang with a 302 engine, that's how old it is. I'm talking cubic inches. I could change various parts out of it. I could change spark plugs and the alternator and the distributor cap and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if they have distributor caps anymore. They probably
don't. Who knows?
But today I couldn't. So why am I somehow better than some guy who can? I'm not.
Nope.
In fact, I think it's an un-American idea that you are better than someone else because of the nature of their work. As long as you're working, you have respect, and you should have respect because you deserve respect. That's honorable. And we need to get out of that. Everybody doesn't need a 4-year degree. In fact, I think a lot of people waste valuable life on it, tie a giant albatross around their necks. Hell, it's an anchor around their necks in the form of debt. They come out and they never use their degree. I mean, like I use my communications degree. It didn't teach me to communicate. It taught me to bullshit my teachers with essay question answers.
Right.
So it's, I think as a culture we need to change, and that has a lot of effects. If we get out of the everybody's got to go to college mindset, suddenly life moves back like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Because then you don't feel like I got to spend at least 10 years doing something to make up for, to put that college degree to use. Well, why do you need it? And the fact is, all the info's there, Jack.
Everything.
The history that I learned, I mean, I could have had a history major also if I had stayed a little longer. History, poli-sci, and communications, my God, which meant I drank a lot.
Right.
But where did I actually learn this stuff? I learned it on my own because I was interested in it and wanted to learn. You don't learn in college. At best, you learn how to learn and you get other experiences that help you. And that's the best of college. I mean, I don't think college is useless. I think it's useless for some people or not worth the cost benefit.
Yeah. It's not worth it to go figure it out anymore. It used to be.
No.
It used to be. Even back in the 90s when I went to George Mason, I think it was like $2,000 a semester. A semester.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Which made it like, okay, if you just kind of wanted to go explore, figure out, try things out, well, then that made a little bit of sense.
Well, who needs a gap year when you can just go and party? I mean, that's what I did in college. I partied all the time.
Yeah.
I want to get laid and I want to drink.
Yeah. What do you know?
Oh, and then in classes, and I still did well in the classes. Not because I was a genius, but because the standards weren't that high. You get a degree at college. I can't tell anything. I remember I had one person who went to a very prestigious college, and she wanted to be a law clerk, and we're interviewing her. Or, well, we wanted to interview her. We told her, be here at 10 o'clock, and we'll do the interview. And she was late. And she called us and said, I can't find the place. And she's like 30 minutes late. Okay, well, it is kind of hard to find where to park. Be here tomorrow at 10. Well, she walks up at about 10:15, knocks on the door, and my other partner walked out and said, yeah, we're not interviewing you. And, how can you get out of college? Yeah, you get out of college and you're surprised that people want you to do what you need to do?
Dude, that's awfully white supremacist of you to insist on punctuality. You know this is a sign of white dominant culture, my friend.
God, isn't critical race theory and all the bullshit associated with it the most deeply insulting attack on minorities that you've ever heard. I mean,
Ever.
if you really wanted, how would how would David Duke phrase it differently than the CRT guys?
Not at all. Totally the
You know,
same.
you see one of those. These are the qualities of white supremacists, and it looks to me like David Duke's writing this down. Here are all these stereotypes about what those others.
Here's how
think.
awesome
It's
white people
fucking
are,
horrible.
and this is how they did it. Is basically the list, and then they're like, now we need to destroy all of this.
It's so. I mean, it's just so.
But it's not white people.
Disgraceful.
They're describing American culture.
Yes.
That's the thing. They're
Yes.
describing American culture. I didn't even know I was white until I got older. I thought I was just dirty black Irish and some weird Eastern Euro Jew. That no one ever said to me, "You're a white boy."
I think one of the great achievements of America was that and I'm a guy who served in the Balkans, so I know a little about ethnic hatred. I've walked through ruined villages. Okay,
Yeah.
I know this on a visceral level because I saw it, and I talked to the people and how much they hated each other. One of the great achievements of America is the majority of Americans did not identify by their race. It was like 70%, European, and most of those had no racial consciousness. So is it a great idea to now make them have a racial consciousness? Because you're bad people. Some people are going to go, yes, I'm terrible. Others are going to go, now you're pissing me off.
Yeah.
It is so unbelievably short-sighted, but not when you understand their actual game, which is personal power. Right. Because in the short term, you get a lot of personal power by hyping up hypothetical divisions that don't actually exist. But if you can invent them, then these people like the rich BLM woman who has like 5 houses, you do okay.
Right. As an Irish Catholic, right, I grew up very acutely aware of the ability for people of the same race to hate each other and want to murder each other and kill each other to death with no sense of unity whatsoever. So when we talk about this as monolithic, it's like,
I don't think there are a lot of people singing "God Save the Queen" in your neighborhood.
No, definitely not. So
when they were talking IRA, it wasn't an investment opportunity.
That's why all of this is historically ignorant. It's out of context, and you nailed it down exactly. It's entirely about power, which would be interesting to see how they've built this philosophy that they use to justify their behavior off of critical theory, which is about the oppressed taking over from the oppressors and destroying the system of oppression. What are they going to do with their philosophy and their academic literature when they get to the point where they have to admit they're in power now?
Well, the thing to understand is there is no bottom, right? We kind of look at it and think, oh, it's going to get so bad that there's going to be, a backlash among them, not among us, but among them. And you look at San Francisco, and you're playing hopscotch, dodging used bologna sandwiches and hypodermic needles on the sidewalk. And it's all liberal, right? It's entirely liberal. There's no conservatives there.
Yeah.
And they don't do anything about it. You look at Venezuela, where they're, literally eating the zebras out of the zoo. And the leadership doesn't go, perhaps this communism thing isn't working so good. No, there's no bottom for them.
Right.
They because it doesn't matter.
Okay.
What matters is them possessing power.
So,
and if we understand that, God, all these people wanted to talk to me. If we understand that power is the only motivating factor, then it all becomes clear. But it also becomes clear that we have to match it with power, in our case, electoral power, and we've got to go in and we've got to take back the legislature, the courts, and the White House.
Electoral power. I hope that that's within our grasp, electoral power, and convincing people to vote our way. I hope that's in our grasp. You point out there's no bottom. And I have gotten the sense, I spent all last summer on the streets in the riots in D.C., covering things up close, getting bricks thrown over my head at cops, standing there, people looting and burning things, and just feeling everything all year long. It really made me feel like there is no quit in them. right? They're not going to quit. So what do you do when you realize you've been thrown into a burlap sack with an animal that wants to kill you and only one of you are getting out? I mean,
Well, what people with self-preservation are going to do is fight back. Look, that's why you're going to see what they will call authoritarian, we will call law and order, a response. Now, imagine a president or a governor or whatever who tells those cops getting thrown bricks at them, go stop them. And having prosecutors who actually prosecute them. They haven't got pushback yet. Their toughness is potentially this deep. Now, some of them are hardcore, but a lot of them aren't because they've never had somebody pound their head with a truncheon. But that can happen.
Yeah,
and that's likely to happen. There is a significant part of America which you never hear about, and they never hear about, more importantly, because they've never met them, not at college, not on any of the TV stations they watch, who doesn't play that. You don't see this shit happening in Tulsa. Okay? You don't see this happening in Wyoming. You don't see this happening outside of the big cities in Texas because people don't tolerate it. The issue is, can they move this outside of the cities? But when they do, they get pushback. And it's actual pushback. And it's only going to, remember, when you radicalize one side, you naturally radicalize the other.
Indeed.
You have to. I mean, look at the United States. You look at Islamic radicals, right? But it radicaled the United States, too. Do you think 1 week before 9/11, we'd have been sending drones around killing SOBs as they drove across the desert? No. You know, to the extent that being more militant is radical, radicalization of one group radicalizes the other.
Yeah.
Unless it can be eliminated first.
I feel radicalized, and I don't want to be.
Yep.
You know, like my response to the radical feminist threat, you know, I've had to take a little bit more of a radical position. My response to the CRT, have to take a little bit more radical position. But you know, maybe they're drawing us into something that we didn't want to be drawn into. It's a curious circumstance.
Well, I don't think that this is not Hannibal at Cannae. They are not going to draw us in at their weak center and then send the Libyans in on our flanks and seal us with their cav. They're not that smart.
Mercenaries.
Frickin' Libyans. Look, they're not that smart. Remember, these guys are not. We're not dealing with volcano lair dwelling Bond supervillains. Okay, most of these people are deeply unaccomplished, leveraging emotion and the good nature of Americans against us, because Americans, there was a time when if you went to somebody and go, I think you're being racist, most Americans would go, oh my gosh, I better take a personal inventory because I don't want to be that.
Totally.
And it never occurs to them that maybe this guy's just kind of bullshitting you to leverage you. But people are seeing that now. And I think their appeals are becoming less powerful. We're seeing the polls for approval of Black Lives Matter are going in the toilet. Pretty soon it's going to rate down there with herpes and Liz Cheney on the popularity schedule. But
do you really think that's true? I mean, I would like to think that's true, but
yes, I think there is, especially when, and actually in the short term, it helps them to have the whole cancel culture where people are afraid to speak. But the more people think about, hey, I'm not allowed to say what I really think, the madder they get. And as long as we have secret ballots, and remember, except outside big Democrat cities, the electoral process still works fine. And and one of the giant screw ups by Trump was not prepping the battlefield in the big cities, and that's a show on its own. Because I went to help Grinnell in Nevada, and what I saw just pissed me off.
Yeah.
But we will have. I can feel it building. I can feel a backlash. You're getting the mommies are even the Trader Joe's Chardonnay screw top wine women are saying my daughter can't walk the street because she's going to get raped by one of these freaking people left out. I can't. My $100 doesn't go as far as it used to at the supermarket. Dad's seeing he's paying $5 a gallon for gas, and maybe his company is going to go under because it's not green enough. And then they're not allowed to talk about it. They're not allowed to say anything. And people are like, well, this is America. Why can't I say something? And that anger will build. And we saw it in the 70s and 80s. You remember Dukakis? He's a perfectly pleasant guy, but he sided with the criminals. He sided with the welfare bums. He sided against normal people, and he got crushed.
Horton, Willie Horton, was that right?
Willie Horton. Now,
God, I'm old. I'm almost as old as you.
You are old. Oh my God. But Bill Clinton was revolutionary. Not everybody thinks because he was like such a good politician. Well, no, it wasn't his style. It was the fact that he said the cause of criminals is crime. A crime is criminals. Welfare is bad. Work is good. And when he did that, he gave people permission to be liberal again, because you can't be liberal when somebody's going to rape your daughter.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually, some of these people enough people have a self-preservation instinct to switch the balance, because America's always going to be nearly 50-50. That's the nature of two political parties competing to get 50% plus one. If you get enough of the people going, I am tired of having my stereo stolen, I'm going to hire this guy who says I will lock criminals up again. That's what Bill Clinton did.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, I can support all these other liberal things. He's made it safe because I can walk the streets, and now I can, support single payer or whatever.
The crime and murder rates have skyrocketed all across the country, especially in the urban cities where the BLM riots took place.
Well, it hasn't outside the cities as much, which I think is significant.
Yeah.
And John Nolte, my old editor at Breitbart, puts it, he loves to send out his little tweets. Hey, I'm out here outside the cities, and everything's peaceful and people are getting along. I don't see any fires. There's no crime. Criminals are afraid to come out here because they break into a house out here. They're going to get shot. The sheriff's going to come out and arrest the guy for trespassing.
The dead guy.
The dead guy. It's the Democrat cities that are going under, and everybody sees it.
Yeah.
You're going to have the rich limousine liberals who do not tolerate that shit in their neighborhood. Yeah, how many homeless guys do you think there are in Bel Air, in Beverly Hills?
So this is the thing that drives me the craziest, is that my kids go to school in Bethesda in Montgomery County, which is the bluest, liberalist, head up their ass, supine on the ground, begging for forgiveness from BLM group in America. And yet they moved, they live in the city till they have a couple of kids, then they move to Bethesda. Why do they move to Bethesda? For the good schools.
Yes.
What does that mean, people? As an educator, I know exactly what that means. It means that there's smart white kids there. And that's why they moved there. And it's all this closet racism. They're like, we moved here for the good schools, to be around people that we want to be around. And now we're like, BLM acolytes. I don't get it.
Well, look, for them, they don't have a religion, so they have CRT and social justice. And of course, why are schools in the Bahamas, where you have children of African descent, why are they excellent? Because there's standards, because they're held to it. Imagine, and every once in a while you would see it on like 60 Minutes. They'd have an inner city school, right? And it'd be like a private school or a charter school. All the kids would be where they didn't tolerate nonsense and where they didn't have all the government union crap, the teachers union crap. And the black kids would be doing fantastic. This is John. He's going to Harvard. This is Mike. He's going to be a Marine. These kids would do fantastic. The problem with the inner city schools is not necessarily the people in the inner city. There's some social pathologies that breed over, but you get some of those even in rich district. It is the fact that the schools in the inner cities are designed purely to provide sinecures for administrators and teachers. That is the purpose of the schools, as we found out during COVID. So they don't care. Again, if David Duke wanted to harm Black Americans, he would do what Democrats have done in inner city schools.
Yep. Indeed, I agree with that 100%. I would like to move a little bit forward here and tie in a couple of things and ask you your take on this. You served in Kosovo, so you understand what the term balkanization really
I
means.
do.
You've
Yes.
written about separation, I think, in your books and your fiction series and what the outcome for the United States could be. I had Jesse Kelly on the other day, and he told me he sees the future of the United States lying in some form of balkanization. What is your take on that idea? Should these differences become irreconcilable, which I actually believe that they are at first principles irreconcilable? What is balkanization on the table? What does that even mean? What does it look like 20 years from now?
I think there is a chance of it, but I think more likely a consensus will develop that rejects the extreme elements of CRT and social justice. I think there's going to be a blowback. I think there has to be. Look, again, you radicalize one side, you're going to radicalize the other. Most Americans don't want a fight. Most Americans want. That's a problem, but it's also good. I mean, look, America's in where it is now because tough men made it a safe place to be frivolous. Okay? There's no risk. You're not brave if you're supporting CRT. You're a conformist. Okay? All these rebels, a rebel without a risk. Okay, real rebels, like Nathan Hale and all the founding fathers. Man, they lost. They were going to be swinging from a tree.
Definitely.
These guys are going to get a mansion, get on MSNBC. Okay, there's no risk there. Yeah. I think the most likely outcome is some sort of consensus that rejects the most extreme stuff and allows people to get back to something like normal. Although I'm not sure, when was the last time things were normal? Arguably before 9/11. Right. Actually, arguably before the 2000 election.
Berlin Wall to 9/11, Pax Americana.
Yeah, but we still had weirdness with Bill Clinton and stuff, and we still had disruption with the contract with America. So there was some disruption, and Waco. And Oklahoma. I mean, the 90s, True. It's been a while since we were, quote unquote, normal. And I'm not sure a lot of people remember. City. Yeah. And not a lot of people, and I'm not sure people really, I think they yearn for normality. I don't think they yearn for normality so much that they're willing to become serfs and at least outside of the cities, become serfs and live as such.
Yeah. Interesting. I think part of the answer, no matter what it is to increase the amount and of these values that we've been talking about in our children, our communities, and in the world around us. And I wanted to ask you, you seem to have a pretty strong sense of masculine energy. Where did that come from for you? Was your dad a masculine guy? Did he teach you in the ways of
without ever talking about it? He just did what he had to do.
Yep.
He wanted to, he fixed things, went to work, got stuff done. And I think I certainly had that going in the military. In the military, a no excuses mentality. I think one of the biggest difference between masculine and feminine energy is that masculinity is about objectives and femininity is to some extent about rationalizing why you can't meet expectations. To some extent, in the sense that,
well, you need both of those in some cases. Right?
But you do need both because, look, masculine, I don't want to live in a world of only men.
No.
Okay? And it's not just a sex thing.
No.
It's because masculine values are relentless. Okay? And there is no flexibility on it. Women provide a flexibility. They look at things differently. They are complementary. Now, guys can complain about, oh, damn, wife always spoiling the kid. I tell them to take out the garbage, and she's got an excuse why they can't. Oh, it's cold out there. Okay, well, men, maybe it is cold out there. Maybe it doesn't make sense for your kid to get frostbite taken out the garbage. On the other hand, women, maybe it's not a bad thing for them to do something that's hard and unpleasant because it needs to be done. So, I mean, there's a dichotomy there. I mean, I certainly, and there are no more feminine women than Cuban women. I married a beautiful Cuban immigrant, and we're very different. I mean, I'm Scotch German. I just did my one of those DNA things, and it's like compared to me, Mitt Romney's ethnic.
Right.
Okay.
99% likely to get in a fight.
But efficient. I like to joke about my kids. They're efficient, thrifty, yet passionate. And the Cuban family. The Cuban family came over for my wife's birthday last weekend, and I felt like I was on I Love Lucy and everyone else was Ricky. But it was but to say that cultures are not different is just a lie. It's not better or worse. My family never shouted or yelled. They shout, yell, and then they hug. And you mix that up. We have my wife and I have very different personalities. I think they're complementary, but that doesn't mean there's not friction sometimes. Yeah. And I think men and women are very different. And I think we should, why are we trying to turn women into men and men into women? Figuratively, if not literally. Literally is that's a whole other argument and discussion. But
right,
and you look at something like the military's Disney princess ad. Everyone focuses on how the girl in this army ad has two mommies, but that's not the issue. The issue is it's done in Disney princess style. Who exactly are they trying to appeal to? Do they think that some freshman at Wellesley is going to say, yeah, well, this gender studies program's great, but I'm going to go enlist and go to Fort Chaffee? That's the people who fight and win our wars in general. Again, in general, are affluent suburban males looking for a challenge because they don't have to be there, and rural and inner city kids who want to be in a tough environment where they can prove who they are and get a job, maybe get some opportunities out of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, of course, are legacies. My dad was at D-Day. My father was at Quezon. Those are the guys who are the backbone of the Army. Now, I'm not saying. Look, I led women. I worked for women in the military. And I'm certainly not insulting their commitment or their skill or anything else. But the fact is, the military is primarily about young, aggressive males and young, aggressive male energy. And it has been for 5,000 years.
It should be, and it should be preserved and channeled. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what that's what. Much like in normal society, like Roman society, you had to pater familias, and one of his jobs was to keep the young males in line.
That's right.
Okay, and that's why we have non-commissioned officers and officers, to keep the young males in line. Young males are unbelievably dangerous.
Yes.
They are a time bomb if they are not disciplined.
Well, if you don't give them things to do, like make babies, have a family, build stuff, protect stuff, master stuff, provide stuff. If you don't do that, they just go around and destroy stuff.
Yes. That's true. And again, in general, and
we talk a lot in generalities. It's okay. There's always specific cases that prove the rule too.
I like her. Well, what about Gina Carano? Okay, there's one girl who can take on. I love those Hollywood movies where now they always have to have they'll have King Arthur, and they'll be like one black guy, and he's like, oh yes, I'm the Nubian. And then they have one beautiful woman who's like 110 pounds, and she's like wielding the broadsword, and she's taken out the Black Knight who's like 350 pounds, and he's got a halberd, and she's taking him on, and it's you don't need to do that.
No, definitely.
You don't need to do that. Okay.
What are you doing with your kids? How are you trying to transmit these values to them? Do you sit down and talk to them? Do you lecture them? I lecture my kids sometimes, but more than anything,
Yeah,
it's really
my
about lead by
kids are
example.
teenagers. They don't. I think you have to lead by example. And frankly, I wouldn't have a lot. Like if my kids sat down and took notes when I talked, I'd probably lose respect for them. You gotta find your own way. I know these are enduring truths. You can talk till you're blue in the face to people. That people learn by doing. They learn by experience. And a lot of people refuse to learn by experience. They deny their experience, and they tend to be unhappy people. We call them liberals. And it's I think, I always find it amusing when people are like, yes, I've managed to transmit my values to my kid. No, your kid chose to have your values. And maybe you had something to do with that. But at the end, it's your kid's choice. And you got to hope that they make good choices. But that's part of becoming an adult. You have to decide where you stand. And a certain percentage of people are going to make mistakes. You look through history. And one of the things, especially Roman history, back to Rome, you had Marcus Aurelius, right? Who's this warrior, scholar, philosopher. And his son is Commodus, who's a freaking nut job and totally incompetent. History is replete with sons who fail to live up to the standards of their father. Now, of course, by definition, most of the great guys exceeded their own fathers. Alexander was greater than Philip, but at the end, I think you just got to hope and pray. You do the best you can to model the example, give them the opportunities, and then hope and pray. And a certain percentage will do fine, and a certain percentage are going to fall out.
That is an interesting thing to bring up, which is, as a father, you can do all the right things. You can live your life in the right way. You can model the correct behaviors. You can give the kids the right books, teach them all the right things. And at the end of the day, guess what? They're going to do whatever the fuck they want to do.
Well,
and they may or may not do
true.
it right way.
And it kills me. You look at some of these, you'll look at the news and you'll see, in court, some scumbag who's murdered his girlfriend or shot up a post office or, set some on fire. And you'll see his family. His family looks perfectly nice, and they probably were. And they're like, I took him to church and everything else, and he just turned out bad. A certain percentage of people are. And that's terrifying. Hopefully you're able to teach them, don't do something that makes a decision that's going to affect the rest of your life. There are, people who have ruined their life with one stupid move.
Yeah. That's almost, in some ways, that's the best you can hope for, is you give them everything, model everything you can, hope they don't screw anything up permanently until they have a chance to figure it out on their own. But yet, the expectations of fathers on sons, these are archetypical stories. These are throughout all of history. I was watching this really funny show, Mythic Quest, on Apple TV. Really, really well done. I highly recommend it. And they were talking about this new storyline they're coming up with. And they're like, and at the end, you take off the mask and it's his father. And the guy's like, oh, you mean like Star Wars? Exactly. But there's a reason why it relates and it resonates, because fathers have expectations of their sons. Sons know that there's expectations from their fathers. There's competing interests for resources. And it's just it's a historic kind of struggle.
Now, this is interesting. It just occurred to me. Look, I got challenged a long time ago by a chaplain to read a chapter of the Bible every night, which I have for about 15, 20 years. And I would skip around at first. Now I started with the New Testament. I'm working to go all the way through. It's going to take me a couple of years. I'm on Proverbs now. And Proverbs is, if you don't know, it's a set of, basically the wisdom of Solomon. And he says a bunch of things. An astonishing number, Jack, are about, a poor man with a good son is happy, while a rich man with a wanton son is saddeth. And it's not just one or two. This is a theme.
Yeah.
And I just think that's interesting. This book of ancient wisdom. By the way, they ought to teach the Bible. And not simply because I think everybody should be a Christian. Obviously, I think everybody should be my religion because I think my religion's correct, as I suppose people who adhere to other religions or no religion consider theirs correct. But it's the basis of Western civilization. There's so many things in it that relate to stuff you see every day. Like the term apple of my eye is like in there. I mean, all these little turns of phrases, I'm constantly coming over them going, oh, that's where that came from.
Hilarious.
And I don't think, I think to be an educated person in the West, you should have some understanding of what the Bible says, even if you choose not to believe it, simply because you want to be educated. And of course, they wouldn't do that because, I don't know, was it, oppressive European males wrote it, except of course that's not who wrote it, but whatever.
I was raised Catholic and Jewish. I was bar mitzvahed. I also went to mass. None of it stuck for me as an adult. But my kids and I have become more interested in this recently. And in fact, one of my daughter's favorite books to read before bed is children's Bible stories. And we read one each night. It's not exactly a chapter, but, it's sort of like a summary. One's like the flood or whatever. And, she's loved them and I've loved it. And I certainly feel drawn to religion in a more powerful way than I've ever felt in my life. In fact, I'm waiting for my epiphany. If you know how to deliver one, I'm willing to accept it at any time.
Well, look, your epiphany will come along when the time is right for your epiphany. I never had a time where I didn't believe in God in my whole life. I just always did. It always made sense to me on I guess an emotional level. Mm-hmm. It made it, although I think it's a intellectual mistake to attempt to objectively prove the reality of religion. I do find the fact that, look at this. This just happened by chance. Right. All the chemical, not just the fact that it's, the bones are put together, but all the chemical processes involved, all the proteins and everything just happened. It just always seemed right to me. I just always believed. And I didn't make a big deal about it. I'm not going to hide it. But it was just always something. It was just always there. It just always made sense. So,
yeah,
I never had an epiphany.
I feel that. Yeah. I'm looking for it. I'd like to order one up on Uber Eats. Please have it delivered right away. Until then, I just keep learning. I keep talking to people, and at the very least, it's much easier to see the values in our society, why they've been useful and productive and of high utility for us, and why we shouldn't just throw them in the trash heap. All that.
Yeah, because we're not that much smarter than all of the people in human history that now 2021, this crew has got it right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. That is the part that is toughest for me. Not all that is old is bad. Not all that is new is good. And looking back for answers is probably the best way to do it. I got the Claremont Fellowship this year. So
I saw that. Congratulations. That's going to be amazing.
It is.
You'll be in my neck of the woods, so maybe we can grab a drink or something.
That would be fantastic. I'd love that. And they said they're sending a box of books, and man, they weren't kidding. A box of books. And so I'm going through the books in preparation and, rereading Federalist papers, rereading Federalist 10. And it's written in a direct conversational way. And
yes,
they're talking to me. And when you read history with an ability to actually do something, even how small on the margin it may be, about current times, reading history is like a playbook. It's like a manual. Yes. Like, here's how it works.
Yes, it is there. I mean, it doesn't provide the answer. It tells you where to go find it, and it gives you things to think about.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. The great military quest for the last 2,000 years has been to repeat Hannibal's victory at Cannae, and and nobody's been able to do it. So it's not a blueprint, but it's kind of a hand-drawn map to somebody's house on a cocktail napkin.
Right.
You know, it's not Google Maps, but if you follow it, you're probably going to get in the same general area, and maybe you can call for directions for the last couple blocks.
Right. You do a little trial, a little error, a little, recalibration, and you're good to go. 100%.
Yeah. And it also tells you about human nature. And I think that is human nature. I define wisdom as the understanding the truth about God and man. And I think we have a lot of smart people and not a lot of wise people. And I think wise people understand human nature and how it works. And I think that's been sadly lacking in our society. I think it's an underappreciated quality. And I think that's something we ought to cultivate as for lack of a better word, conservatives.
As a starting point, people need to accept there is such a thing as human nature. That's part of our fundamental divide these days.
Well, the Marxists think that man is a blank slate. They want to believe it is all nurture, not nature. Well, we know it is a combination of the two. And they love the idea of the new Soviet man. They love the idea that they can remake man in their image and have things work their way. And they're also the same people who go, yeah, but there's never been real communism. So, which is kind of a concession that every time we've tried this, it's gone off the rails.
Indeed. So hopefully we won't have to come to that point here in the United States. I do appreciate your optimistic outlook that the war can be won in the ballot box. Let's try to make that happen as a first step, at least, people. Kurt, thank you so much for coming on, man. We blazed through 90 minutes. I had an absolute blast. You want to plug some things for people? Because I know that guys are going to be interested in finding more of your work. Where can they find you, Kurt?
Well, look, you can find me on Twitter if you like mom jokes. I believe that some people don't deserve the respect of an argument, so I just basically say, hey, your mom's cruising bus stations. Drives them up the wall. It's hilarious. But look, I think your guys would really enjoy the Kelly Turnbull novels. It's about America has split in two, and a tough guy with a lot of masculine energy goes into the blue states, and you see. And I try and portray both the effect of a split on the blue states, and it essentially becomes, San Francisco times 100, but also on the red state. How would it change us as conservative if we were in power without any kind of liberal? And it is not the same, and it is not always purely good. It's not. It's not these guys are horrible, which they are, the blue guys, but the red guys are perfect. It's not, because human nature leads to issues, even among people ourselves. And frankly, even in the conservative movement, there are, some people who hate each other, and there are rivals, and there's fighting, and there's jockeying for position. There's a lot of humor in it. I make a lot of fun of the insanity of social justice. When I started writing them in 2016, there are 5 of them now, starting with People's Republic. People were like, that's outlandish. And now I get emails going, Kurt, you didn't even tell the half of it. The last one, Crisis, which got to 29 on all of Amazon. I'm not quite Michael Malice, who got to 3, but 29 on all of Amazon, right? Thank you, America. Nice. I published that in November, and one of the scenes very early was a riot in D.C. that involved attacking the Capitol.
Get out of town.
And people were like, wow. A mini-surrection. Don't get me going on that nonsense.
I know. So many topics we could have gotten into.
Oh, man, we could have just gone for 5 hours. But, yeah, I strongly suggest checking out the books. Get People's Republic first. If you like it, there's 4 more. I have a lot of fun writing. I'm writing another one called The Split, probably out at the end of next month or July. It's got crocodiles this time, so that'll be a lot of fun.
With lasers?
I wish.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations to you. A retired colonel, a senior columnist at Townhall, an author of a 5, almost 6 book fiction series, a successful trial lawyer sitting in his corner office in sunny Southern California. I really appreciate the time today, Kurt. This has been awesome, dude. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll do it again. Guys, everybody out there, please share this stream, share this video, share these clips. I get feedback all the time that the show is woefully undersubscribed and underviewed. I agree 100%. Hit subscribe, share it. Get it out there. It is pretty much the only way that we can beat the algorithms and spread the word. Post it on Twitter, put it on Facebook, just send it out there. I really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Jack Murphy Live. And guys, coming up, it is the 2-year anniversary of the Liminal Order. Our doors are open next Monday. We're taking the first 50 guys that want to apply. We will then vet and interview you over the next 90 days. Join us if you believe in masculinity, brotherhood, and sovereignty, and you do not want to be infringed upon in any way. Get with us, get with a team. We will help you get there. I appreciate it. Kurt, thanks again. Everybody,